so we are going to do a little chit chat while I do my nails, because I need to do my nails. And one of the questions in my link was kind of talking about some trending topics and what my thoughts are. And I have a little list already of things that we're going to get into. And you'll hear some of my thoughts, my hot takes on some of the trending topics that are circulating online right now. So first I want to start with the Hanifa backlash and the recent news that her brand is now indefinitely on hiatus as of yesterday due to all of the kind of issues and concerns that people have called out. And I will say this, a lot of the criticism is warranted. So I kind of see both sides. I feel like the people who are criticizing the customers need to chill out. Like, y'all sound ridiculous. People are rightfully annoyed and frustrated that they paid for things and they didn't get their items. At the end of the day, like, it's a business. It's clear that Hanifa had a lot of internal issues within her organization and her business structure that needed refining, and the backlash is a little warranted there. This is all coming from someone who ordered from Hanifa back in 2017. So way back before she went viral and stuff in 2020, post-pandemic, all that stuff. Like, I was a customer way back in the day. And I didn't have any issues with my order. My experience was fine. I'm not the biggest fan of Hanifa to really be like a repeat customer, but I've been watching and, you know, of course, like, supporting from the sidelines. I think her brand is like needed in this space, and I think she occupies a really unique space at the kind of like designer price point. I wouldn't necessarily say that her brand is what you would consider like luxury. I know people label it as luxury. I wouldn't really consider it like luxury on that level yet, but she's definitely in like the contemporary designer market, and I would have loved to see her clothes and, you know, a few like actual brick and mortar stores. That would have been really nice. Like, I could see her doing really well in like a Nordstrom or like a Saks. Like, that would have been a really cute pivot for her. But I think the rebrand is necessary. I think the pause on her brand is necessary. So when I was reading and like watching a few of the people's like responses about it, it honestly gave that like the organizational structure, the business structure was just chaos and disorganized, and that was never set up kind of properly from the beginning, and it definitely wasn't set up properly as she scaled. I think she scaled very fast, giving all of the viral success that she had, and I'm not mad at her for doing that, to be honest, because you really have to strike when the iron's hot, and she did that with the bridal collection, with putting out collections every 6 months. You had a very quick calendar and turnaround, so I'm not mad at it. But I feel like if you're gonna scale that fast and be that broad, you need to have the infrastructure in place, and she did not have that in place. You can tell from the leadership, like the top leadership, and all the way down to like the design teams, the tech teams, production teams, customer service, all those separate teams, the proper people and the proper channels were not put in place, because these are rookie mistakes that I would give grace to someone who's like 5-6 years in business, not someone who's been doing this for 15 years. Like, sorry. You can tell that a lot of the like time, money, and effort was definitely spent or focused on probably more on the marketing side, social media side, really getting like the brand awareness out there versus actually building up a sustainable like business model, because the pre-order business model that she was operating on, like, that doesn't work. And it doesn't work for an extended period of time. And one of the things that was interesting when I was thinking about this too, I'm really surprised that she didn't start a line of like core basics, kind of like your tees, your tanks, maybe doing like matching sets. I know she had like her little loungewear line, but something that could be carried over like year after year, and like basic colors, because I feel like the girls would have loved like some cute little logo tees that aren't like corny or cheap, but like I think they would have did well with like, you know, a Hanifa hoodie, Hanifa jogger set, like really go that route, because then you can just produce those super quick, the turnover is quick, and you'll always have like that backup like cash flow, because your core basics are your core. Also with accessories, I know that she did I guess like her signature bag, which I think if I remember when it released, it was like around like $800. So it was supposed to be kind of like, you know, a luxury higher end bag. I feel like going back to like doing core basics, if she did kind of what Telfar did or is still doing, like, but doing a line of like really simple like totes or like duffels, you know, actually really kind of did a good job or a good interpretation of what Hanifa should have did when it comes to having more like of those basic bags. Sean Brown, Curves by Sean Brown, his like knitted totes that are like going crazy right now that he does in every single color, like that would have been so good for Hanifa to kind of capitalize on or do something like that, because if she especially used some of like the knit fabrications that she does for her clothing, putting those into bags like he does, like that would have sold out so quickly. So I'm really not understanding why that wasn't also a priority. Like you really have to have like those basic core items for people to keep coming back to, because the seasonal stuff, the more design focused items, that's going to take a lot longer. That's going to be more expensive to produce, and you're going to have to keep doing the pre-order model in order to keep sustaining. And that's not good. Another issue was the sizing and the fit issues, which that is completely a design tech step. And for that to be happening after being in business once again for 15 years, that's kind of ridiculous for people to spend like $400 or $500 on a dress that's supposed to be, it's pretty simplistic and fit, but you have to go get it altered and get it tailored. And alterations, good alterations, are not cheap. So you have to also add on an additional cost. You can't be doing that. But that also shows like, I don't know, lack of preparation when it comes to kind of like the back end, the design and the tech team, because those like sizing and grading issues should not be happening, and it should not be happening as frequently as they do. All of that like extra fabric that should not be on a size extra small, a size small, that's all just like wasted, and you're spending money on that. So I think that's also where maybe some like money, financial cash flow issues may have like happened there, because you are essentially wasting money by not having the correct grading and sizing when you go into production. That's a huge issue, and that should not be a standard set for your business. Sorry. It just is what it is. What else did I see? People were complaining about like the fact that people have critiques about a black owned business, a black woman owned business. And I feel like you can't really police people's critiques, especially when they're spending money. And one thing that I did notice too is that I think a lot of people kind of, I wouldn't say it's not parasocial, but people really bought into her as a brand and what the brand represents, which I think is great. But I think a lot of people also don't acknowledge the fact that some people may shop your brand, may patronize your business, and they just want the item and they want to go. They're not interested in forming that, like, in a way, parasocial relationship. Like, they don't really care about the life problems that you have going on. They don't care about the fact that, you know, something went wrong with production and manufacturing. They want their item that they paid for. And they're not going to sit there and give you grace. Like, that's literally the reality of being a business owner. So I don't think that they should be at fault either, be criticized because they're asking for their item or they're frustrated with the process. Like, yeah. And most people complaining about the customers being frustrated because if the shoe was on the other foot and you paid for an item and you didn't get it until 6 months later, you would not be asking for all this grace. You would not be giving all this grace when it comes to your money. So don't criticize people who actually paid for their items and still didn't get it. Like, it doesn't work like that. And I think people are picking and choosing on when it's okay to criticize and when it's okay to give grace. I think if you were giving hate comments, you were being really nasty towards Hanifa and Hanifa, the owner, and her business, I think that's completely uncalled for. Like, you don't have to go there. It doesn't have to go that low. We're in the age of TikTok. We're in the age of where like social media will make or break a business. But that's something too you have to be mindful of. And especially now that we're in a sensitive time when it comes to like people's money, people's discretionary income. Like, people aren't spending money like they used to. So yeah, they're gonna be pissed off. And that's something that I don't think that the team or even her even thought about. Like, people are really being tight with their wallet. So if they don't get their stuff, they're gonna be pissed off and they're gonna go off. So the correct people in place. I think the whole statement that she really was giving a lack of, once again, like PR, communications, because a lot of it was giving like, give me grace, black owned businesses don't get to make mistakes, like all these like kind of like virtual signal. I don't know, I wish she had like a business mentor set in place, especially when she went on maternity leave. I don't know why that's a big conversation or a big part of this conversation, because people go on maternity leave all the time. Yeah, that whole statement was a little weird to me. I don't know, I think people can extend their grace and give their money again once she rebrands, once she comes back. I hope she does take time and come back. I think that just people are just like literally insane for criticizing customers that are complaining about it. I think that's crazy that you're like being or playing like the moral police when it comes to how people spend their money and when they don't get their item. Like, what are we talking about? And my last point. I don't know if you guys remember, but there was a girl that came out with a story time, I think last year, and she was a part of the design team at Hanifa, and I think she worked mainly on the bridal collection. And if you listen to her story time, I don't know if she took it down or not, but if you listen to her story time, that will tell you everything you need to know about how that brand operates, and none of this, all this that's going on, would be a shock or a surprise. That's why I wasn't shocked when everything came out. I was a little shocked that she closed down or hiatus or whatever, but everything else, like nothing about that surprised me. Sorry. I don't know. So as you guys know, I've been posting what I've been reading. I posted my February reads, and now we're on to March. We can review our February reads, what I liked, what I didn't like, and what we're doing for March. So the first two books were by the same author, Sadiqa Johnson, Yellow Wife and The House of Eve. And she is honestly becoming one of my favorite historical fiction writers, especially like the topics that she covers. She covers mainly like Black historical fiction, sprinkling in a little bit of romance. Of course, we have the factual history and kind of just exploring like the Black female identity in these different time periods. Her writing is very digestible and you can understand what she's saying, because sometimes historical fiction can get a little wordy. You can have to like double back a little bit when reading it. The subject matter can get a little rough at times depending on what we're talking about. So in The Yellow Wife, this was about a biracial slave, and she got sold off to they called him like a jailer, owned the jail that would house the slaves before they would go out to auction, and she got sold off to him as his wife, and all the things that happen in that dynamic, that relationship dynamic. And yeah, it was very explicit at times. It was kind of a trigger warning reading. I wouldn't say that I took away like a super deep meaning from this book, but it was more of just an educational read, I guess, for me, and just, you know, a good novel about depicting what went on back then. The ending was a little anticlimactic. I feel like she could have written a better ending to tie up loose ends, but overall, like, I don't want to spoil too much of it, but it's a really good novel. The second book that I attempted to read was With Love from Harlem by Rashonda Tate, and this was super hyped up. It was on every single list as like a must read, and I did not like it at all. I was severely disappointed in it. I made it to chapter 20, page 131, because this story is covering Hazel Scott, who was honestly one of the most talented people to exist ever as a pianist, as a performer. Please look her up. Her resume, crazy. But also during the Harlem Renaissance, she was like one of the key people. Her life was really rich and like fulfilling, and I don't know, it seems like when I read about her, she seemed to have a little bit more of a spark, more personality than what was written in the book. And this is kind of telling her story through the lens of her marriage to Adam Clayton Powell, who's a politician. And even on like the romance part of it, it didn't give that. It was very dry a little bit. Like, they had no chemistry to me, the way it was written, and they had a lot of drama within their relationship, but I didn't really care to keep reading about it. I feel like Rashonda Tate kind of watered down Hazel Scott's whole story and aura a little bit, so I kind of like gave up, did not finish reading at all, and I don't know if I'm gonna pick it back up. I need to look at some more reviews, but overall I feel like a lot of the reviews are kind of where I am. Now for March, I am excited because we have another Sadiqa Johnson book and Tiari Jones, whose book is literally one of the most anticipated novels of 2026. So the first one we have is Sadiqa Johnson, again, Keepers of the Lost Children, and this premise is super interesting to me because we're going to World War II Germany, and it's kind of a story of 3 different lives and how they kind of intersect around that time. And usually a lot of her work does cover like Black stories, so I'm wondering how she's gonna fuse that into the story. But I don't know, I'm excited. Like I said, she's one of my favorite authors of the moment, so I'm excited to start this one. And then we have Ken by Tiari Jones. Like I said, super anticipated book, and I need to actually read her first one, An American Marriage. Apparently that one was also really good. I really like the premise of Ken because it reminded me of The House of Eve, how that was depicting the 2 relationships between 2 Black women in the 40s and 50s and how they kind of interconnected their stories. And this is kind of doing the same thing, but it's 2 best friends and how their lives kind of like go separate ways and then they come back together, and the 2 separate paths that they kind of take within their lives. So I'm gonna start reading Ken first, and this has really good reviews so far. Everybody's been loving it. One of the major updates that I made in my apartment is I wanted to definitely curate a bookshelf or a space for all of my books, all my coffee table books. And my goal and my space was to have coffee table books literally everywhere, anywhere that had a flat surface. I showed a little bit before of where I kind of landed with some of my books, what I have so far, and that was just on the shelf. I have so many other books placed everywhere else throughout this apartment. But I wanted to go through some of the new books that I found in my collection, and there's some throwbacks, there's some new ones that I found, so I thought it'd be interesting to share. If you're not looking on thrift books for novels or even like any like art, fashion books, they have so many good coffee table books. I got most of the books that I'm going to show you, I got from thrift books. I found this Alaia photo book, which is so cool. This is such a good find, and it has his sketches and old campaigns. His sketches were beautiful. And then I have one of Robin Given. If you don't know who she is, she most recently was at the Washington Post, one of the most notable like black fashion critics and writers in the industry, and she wrote this book, The Battle of Versailles, which basically was a European versus American fashion design battle back in the 70s. And beyond it being like a little competition between Europe and America when it comes to fashion, which has always been a little bit of a contention there of who's better, the reason that it stands out is because a lot of the popular black supermodels of the day were in this show. So like the Pat Cleveland, like all of the girls, the original girls, they walked in this show. But it's a really cool story. If you haven't had the chance to look into it, look into it. It's really cool. And there's a ton of documentaries about the Battle of Versailles too. And lastly, one of my favorite things that I found, and I've been looking for this book for years, I found Kimberly Simmons' A Fabulosity book. I am so happy I found this. I feel like this is required reading for the girls. This came out in 2006, so I was really young when this came out, but I remember reading it. And I feel like some of the stuff she said, I still apply to this day. Like, I loved this book. A lot of the stuff that she talked about in this book, especially when it comes to like self-esteem, self-confidence, and working and independence, taking care of yourself with body and image. And you know how Kimberly Simmons comes to the table with the look. So she has a lot of good tips. And even though I was a little too young to understand everything, I definitely remember reading this and taking some mental notes. So I am so pleased with myself that I have this in my collection. I still am a little obsessed with Kimberly Simmons. She's still on the mood board for me till this day. Yeah.